Welcome to the Roost News, the place for all things volunteer. I'm Nancy McCammon Hanson. I am an AARP volunteer in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I'm also a member of the Roost News team. And today I'm talking to Michelle Baker and Kathy Mendez, and we're going to be talking about the AARP Volunteer Helpline. Now, since you're both staff members for the Volunteer Helpline, I'd like to know how you got involved with AARP and a little bit about what you do in your jobs. And first of all, your job titles. So, Michelle, let's start with you.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Michelle Baker, and my title is Senior Volunteer Associate supporting the Office of Volunteer Engagement. My primary role here is to provide quality technical customer service to volunteers, staff, and state offices that do contact the helpline. I've been here at AARP for over 35 years. I started in 1990 in tax aid, left tax aid and went to driver safety, left driver safety, and now here in OVE. So total of 35 years, 10 years here in OVE, still providing volunteer support.
And Michelle, where are you located?
I am in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay. Okay. And Kathy, let's hear from you.
Well, it's thank you, Nancy. It's kind of hard to follow that, really. 35 years. Wow, that's great. I can't imagine being anywhere for 35 years. But my name is Kathy Mendez. I am also with the Volunteer Helpline and support the Office of Volunteer Engagement. I, unlike Michelle, have only been with the Office of Volunteer Engagement for technically about 3.5 years. I came on in 2022 as a temp, which was the norm for the volunteer helpline at that time. And it was an 18-month contract. And fortunately for me, after 16 months, they managed to convert it into a full-time position. And I became a full-time employee for AARP and the Office of Volunteer Engagement in January of 2024. My title is Program Associate, and that is to support the Volunteer Helpline and OVE as a whole.
Okay. And where are you located, Kathy?
I work remote from Alabama, North Alabama.
From Alabama. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you both for telling us a little bit about yourselves. Um, as anybody who's been an AARP volunteer for any length of time, you know that AARP has just a ton of information out there. I've never known or been part of an organization that has so much information available to volunteers, and it's sometimes difficult to know how to access that information. Um, so that, as I assume, is the reason for the volunteer helpline. And I do know that the helpline focuses specifically on volunteer needs, and it's separate from other facets of AARP's member services help center. So it's just there for volunteers. Um, and that's one of the reasons for this podcast is that there are a lot of things going on in AARP across the country, and having a way to get ideas from other sections of the country. For example, I used to live in Wyoming, and Wyoming is a different kind of state than Indiana. So, we can share ideas. We can also get information about things that are going on, things that have worked, things that haven't worked, and just get some information about where do we go from here. So how do you to view how volunteers like me should use the helpline?
Thank you so much for that question. I'll go ahead and I'll start. So the volunteer helpline is available Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 Eastern Time. And we service, as I said before, we service volunteers, state offices, and state staff, mostly with portal issues. So let's just say someone is having issues logging onto the volunteer portal, they would contact the helpline, or if they just have a question about something and they're not sure where to go, they can contact the volunteer helpline. And if we don't know the answer, we will find the answer and we'll resolve the issue for the caller.
Okay. Kathy, anything to add?
Yeah, well, Michelle said it very well. That's exactly what we do. The only thing that I would probably add is the fact that when you say that we service volunteers only, we actually do get quite a few calls from other people even though they're not volunteers and they're looking for resources in this fashion or that fashion. Sometimes staff will even reach out to us because they're not sure where to go. It ultimately sometimes boils down to a volunteer issue, but in some cases it isn't. And as Michelle said, we will do our best, even if it's not a volunteer issue, to point them in the right direction. If we need to take their number and call them back, we do. We don't just say that's not what we do here, so call somebody else. We try our best to find out that information and point them in the right direction, even though it may not be a volunteer question.
Okay, so customer service is a key thing.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I appreciate that because I used to be a customer service manager. Um, could you share a short synopsis of a call, or do you get email, by the way?
We do. We
You
do.
do. Okay, so if what's an average or a common thing that people question you with?
Thank you, Nancy. I'll jump in on that one, Michelle, and start first with, so I'd like to give two. One is, as Michelle said, login issues. So it's very common for folks to forget their password, or they forget the link to go to the volunteer portal to log in. So a lot of times then they'll call, or it may just be that maybe they've gotten an error and they need to take care of clearing their history in order to get rid of all those errors that they've had in the background. And so we help with that. So someone will call and say, I can't log into the portal. That's pretty much what they say. I'm so-and-so and I can't log into the portal. We pull up their account, we look, we see, and then we start our investigative process of determining, well, has it been, X number of time, length of time since they've logged in, and we may go ahead and say, well, it's probably best to go ahead and reset your password. Let's do that. We'll walk them through that password change. Or if we see sometimes they may be a brand new volunteer and they haven't gotten their volunteer assignment, which then won't allow them to sign into the portal. So we get them in the right direction for that. Going back to the fact that we get other calls sometimes from staff member. I'll just share real quickly a recent call, and it was from a staff member of Studios, and they were going to have some people coming in to film a documentary related to fraud, and they wanted to make sure that these people got reimbursed for their expenses. They were taking care of their airfare and their hotel, but if they had dinners and things of that nature while they were in town, they wanted to make sure that they got those people reimbursed, and wanted to know the process. And she thought, well, she knew a couple of them were already volunteers. Did they all have to be volunteers? And so we helped with that. We helped assist getting a new code, an assignment created. So we worked with the portal team for that, so that we could get these people that were coming in into the system as volunteers, so that they could then submit reimbursements. So that's an issue of where someone just wasn't sure, but they thought it might be volunteer related. So they gave us a call, and we were able to help them navigate that and facilitate the creation and the assignments, and they're good to go. They were able to come in successfully. Now they should be able to manage those reimbursements successfully, and we'll be there for that if they need us.
Michelle, anything to add?
I have nothing to add, Kathy. She actually said it all very, very well. So basically, like I said, we're all things helpline here. So when we get phone calls or emails, like Kathy said, we hear a lot from volunteers about reimbursement issues, portal issues, and also we hear from people who want to volunteer, and they say, "Oh, you know what? I was told to call this helpline. I want to volunteer. I don't know where to go. Can you point me in the right direction?" So at that point, the helpline team, Kathy and I, we reach out to the state offices if it's a local volunteer that's interested, and we make sure that they are contacted and they are able to volunteer. And down the road, we hear from those same volunteers. And they said, "You know what? I remember talking to you all. And thank you so much for helping me, get connected with AARP so that I can volunteer." So we service all things, not just portal, as Kathy said, just all inquiries that come in. And if we don't know the answer, we find it.
Okay. So are you two the only ones who work on the volunteer helpline, or is there a staff across the country, or how does that work?
Thank you so much. It's just the two of us actually, but we do have another person, Daisy, who's an amazing intern, and she does help us out when the calls get a little heavier than normal. And most times that's during the tax aid season. And I guess that's somewhere between September through April. So we do have an extra set of hands, but normally it's just Kathy and myself.
Okay. So you're probably pretty busy then, huh?
We are very busy. Yes.
So what kind of training did you get to do this job? And do you do regular research, or do you research by question, or how does all this information come to you too?
I
I'll
think
start.
Michelle, well, and I was
Sorry.
going to say, I think Michelle is the good one to start there because she has some back knowledge because she's been there so long. So I'm going to go ahead and let you start, Michelle, on that.
Thank you so much. So basically, we also have a portal team that we rely on very heavily when there are issues with the portal. We also reach out to other departments, depending on what the request is that we do receive. So, for instance, if we hear from someone and they're saying, well, you know what, I want to volunteer, I don't have a computer, can I still volunteer? Can you point me in the right direction? Basically, because I guess I've been here so long, we kind of know where to go. But we take the information that we've received and we actually help the volunteer from our side. So, in other words, most of the questions that we do get is kind of, I guess I would say they're just asking for information. They just want to know, well, this is the helpline. What do you guys really, really do? So we have places that we do go if we don't know the answers right offhand, and we tap different departments within AARP. But more so, it's the knowledge that we have just from being here and supporting volunteers over the years.
So do you direct people who call in or email you to other spots on the AARP websites to where they can get the information?
At some point, yes, we do, but most times we're able to resolve it because most of the calls that we get are pretty much portal related at some point. But yes, we do. Kathy, I'll let you take it from here.
So sometimes, Nancy, what we'll get is like for instance, I've had a call in the past where they were looking to they were looking for property tax relief, and that is a service from the AARP Foundation on the tax aid side. And so we've been able to, a lot of times, if a call comes in, then we can do a quick search of other programs within AARP. And we try to make them quick. We don't want to keep the callers online for a long time. So not because we're geared, not because we're mandated to end the calls in a certain amount of time. That's the best way to put it, because we're not. We can take as long as we need with the calls. That's the joy of the Office of Volunteer Engagement. They've not set any guidelines for how long we have to or how quickly we have to resolve the calls. And so that's really cool. However, I will say that if I can't find something within a quick couple of searches on AARP's sites, various sites, then I will let the person know, let me do a little bit more investigation, and then I'll get back to you. And we can discuss that a little bit further, because I know one of the questions we're going to talk about is how we track and how we measure our success and everything. So we can hold that for a little bit later. But for the most part, I concur with Michelle. We rely on the portal team. Anytime there's updates made to the portal, anytime there's different things, we rely on the other programs. If they implement new assignments or new programs, they pretty much let us know. We have pretty good communication across the programs and with the state offices. And so we rely heavily on that. We did just redevelop with the help of our amazing intern, as Michelle said, early last year. We did redevelop the Helpline manual. So anyone coming in, like if, for instance, Michelle and I both had to be out for whatever reason, there is a manual that is available to walk someone else through the basics of being able to take calls and handle them successfully.
Okay, and so that manual is in-house.
Yes, ma'am.
Not okay. Um, do you keep track of the most asked questions and post on the website the questions and the answers so that they're, really super easy to find?
We do not utilize a web-based search for answers. We do have one website where you can go to aarp.org/volunteer help. And that will walk a volunteer through, well, how do I log into the portal? So there are a few questions that are there. But for the most part, we are a human-based process. So we don't use chatbots, and we don't use chatbots, and we don't even do chat. We do personal phone calls or emails. We respond that way.
Okay. I want to show you something, and I didn't tell you about this ahead of time, but I found this morning on my desk, and I did not realize because it had been sitting upside down. It has the volunteer helpline phone number, 1-833-VOL-AARP, and the email address is volunteer@aarp.org. So I'm going to keep this turned right side up on my desk, which is where it should have been anyway. And it's a nifty little
magnifier.
magnifier, and it has a light on it, I think, too. So do you track which volunteer groups, like say all the volunteer groups in Indiana, do you track who calls in the most from Indiana and what their questions are so that you can go back and do some education, or is it more just a one-on-one between you two and people calling in or emailing?
So that's a good question, Nancy. So we use a platform called Zendesk for our ticketing. And so Zendesk will track the types of calls that we have calling in. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle. I don't think that we track by state. But yeah, I don't think we track by state, but we track by type. So we're
Okay.
able to see the most frequent callers by program, and then within those programs, the most recent types of issues.
So that in turn can help determine how the websites need to be possibly upgraded, changed, developed, and internal programs and that sort of thing, I would assume.
I wouldn't say as much the websites, but it does give us information about the issues that are happening with the portal, or with maybe a communication issue if it's something specific to an issue. Like if every program is calling in saying that they're having login issues, well, we may need to drill down and see. Or we know that during certain times it's going to be that way. Or a better one would be reimbursements. We have tip sheets out there for the volunteers to understand how to do these things. They do get training from their state offices. And so if we see an uptick, we probably could also track whether they're newer volunteers or seasoned volunteers. And that could possibly help us to know whether there's a disconnect in the training from the state offices.
Okay, yeah.
Michelle, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think you have it right. You definitely have it correct. Yes. And there's a report also. I will say this. There's a report that one of our employees, Jesse, does generate monthly, which gives us numbers in terms of what type of calls that we receive and how many. And normally, I would say it's seasonal for some calls, like for tax aid, for instance, we hear more from their volunteers during a certain time frame. But this year, just to say, I guess so far we've I think it's about 9,700 calls that we've received
Wow,
so far.
that's a lot.
Mhm.
How long has the volunteer helpline been in existence?
Well, it was in existence when I came about 10 years ago.
Okay, so
And
it's
I
been a
would say
while.
about 10 years, yes.
Okay, okay. Um, if as a volunteer, what kind of hints would you give me about the most efficient way to use the helpline?
Kathy, you can take that one.
Sure. So Nancy, when I saw that question, I thought, oh man, how exactly do you answer that? How's the efficient way? What I would, and what came to mind immediately was call us before you get frustrated, right? Call us, no question. We're not going to say, I can't believe you called us with that question. How could you call us with that question? That is, that you should know that already. We're not going to do that because we're here to help. Our goal is to serve the volunteers and to help them be empowered to do what they do. We ask them to do a lot on behalf of AARP, and it's our job to support and our pleasure to support the volunteers to make sure that they have a wonderful experience with the portal. Unfortunately, I think the portal gets a bad rap. It's not as difficult to maneuver as a lot of people think. And I think probably that's because they wait until they're frustrated. You know, they keep trying, they keep trying. If you get an error message, just pick up the phone and call. We're there. Most of the time you're able to get us. It's only during those really busy season, that really busy tax season, that most of the time you'll have to leave a message, right? Because we're both on the phone constantly. But all the other times, most of the time you'll get one of us on the phone and you can ask that question right away. A lot of times there's a simple little error message that comes up when you've used a bookmarked link that goes bad, and we'll get calls after they've been trying for 2 weeks getting that same message, and all it is they need to open a new browser and type in the direct link to the portal, and boom, they're in. They didn't even have to put in their credentials because their credentials were taken the first time, but it just didn't let them to the page because it's a broken link. So that's, to me, that was what came out of an efficient way to use the helpline or the portal, is to call us. If you have a question right off the bat, call us because we're there.
Okay. Michelle, anything else?
No, I just know that we enjoy talking to the volunteers. We enjoy providing support. And I just want to clarify one thing. We had 9,700 calls for 2024, so my apologies. I kind of misspoke on that one. But no, we're just here, like I said, and we appreciate the time that the people to volunteer. And they reach out to us, and basically, there's a friendly voice, there's patience there on the line to assist them, and they appreciate that. So they always tell us, "So thank you so much for helping me." And thanks for having patience with me because I'm not really good at this computer stuff. I'm not really good at this technology, and so we're there for them, and we appreciate them calling us, and they appreciate the help that they get from us.
Yes.
Yes. So, concluding thoughts, anything that you want to add that we didn't cover, or any other information other than remember patience is a virtue?
Patience, yes, patience. And again, just I would tell any volunteer that's listening to don't hesitate to give us a call. We strive to be there to help and to assist. In regards to our measurements, one of the measurements that I do look at is we have a on Zendesk. It does track how many one-touch tickets, and that's how many tickets we actually can handle without pending them, without sending them to somebody else. The phone call comes in and we handle it. That's considered a one-touch ticket. According to Zendesk research, anything greater or 80% one-touch tickets is considered world-class service. And so we maintain in the 90s for one-touch tickets. So just a kudos to Michelle. She's been doing this a whole lot longer than I have, and she's great at it. And she's been a great trainer as far as getting me acclimated on the helpline. I'm glad that I'm here to help her now. And so that would be the one thing that I would say is that, to me, that's an indication that we thrive in helping others, because we want to get you taken care of right away. We don't want to have to pin your ticket and get back to you. And that 90% plus of one-touch tickets indicates that we do successfully do that, in my opinion.
And Michelle, final word.
I agree with Kathy. Basically, we try to assist as fast as we can and as adequately as we can. And we also want them to know that if you have another question, give us a call. Just because you called us on Monday doesn't mean you can't call us again on Tuesday. Call us as many times as you need to. We're here. We're happy to help. And we just enjoy working with the volunteers.
Okay. Well, I've learned quite a bit today, and I assume that those who are watching and listening have also learned quite a bit from Michelle and Kathy. Thank you so much for doing this. This is, I had no idea that the volunteer helpline was so helpful. So, good information to have. And I'd also like to thank our audience and staff members who are listening and watching this production. We encourage you to subscribe to the Roost News podcast. You can get us on YouTube, where you can watch these presentations, or you can listen to an audio version on your favorite platform. And if you have an idea for something that we might want to explore, let us know, because we are trying to get the word out about all the wonderful things that AARP does and how volunteers can be a part of that. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you on a future broadcast.
Thank you again, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.